ดีครับทุกท่านครับ Welcome to the last section of this room ครับ Today we have the last section in the Symposium 12. It talk about how to achieve and sustain smoking ban by Dr. Ulysses Dorothy, Dr. Chen Yuan, and Dr. Koji Hassawa. And the moderator of this section is Dr. Eduardo Bianco and Dr. Esti Nujadin. Please enjoy with this section in the last section of this morning. Enjoy.
The 13th Asia Pacific Conference on Tobacco or Health. The title of today's panel discussion is How to Sustain Smoking Bans, Tobacco Control in Asia during the COVID-19 pandemic. As you may already be aware, smoking suppresses the immune system. Scientific evidence also demonstrates the impact of the secondhand smokers to their health. That said, people who are immunocompromised are at risk developing serious illness from COVID-19. Therefore, regulations about smoking bans must be enforced in places such as schools, hospitals, government facilities, and other places where many people get together, and also within the close vicinity of these places. On top of that, psychological stresses are increasing during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many people turn to cigarettes because they believe that smoking can calm their nerves. They believe that smoking is an effective stress reliever. At the same time, we need to recognize these smokers are patients suffering from nicotine dependency. In this session, we will discuss what actions should be performed to achieve successful smoking bans and how important government roles on the success of smoke-free law, and also how COVID-19 pandemic has created psychological stress which leads to the increase of smoking. My name is Esti Nuryadin, and I am the chairwoman of Indonesia Heart Foundation, and I'm also the board member of World Heart Federation. I'm here today to chair this session together with my friend, Dr. Eduardo Bianco. He is the regional coordinator of Framework Convention Alliance. He is a cardiologist specializing on tobacco addiction. Please welcome Dr. Eduardo.
Thank you, Esti. I want to thank and to congratulate to the organizers of the ASEAN Pacific Conference for having organized this important session on a key issue for tobacco control, such as the implementation of 100% smoke-free environment, and how to sustain such implementation in a difficult context as the COVID-19 pandemic and the growth of new tobacco and nicotine products worldwide. In this opportunity, we also talk about if it is possible to press the accelerator and consider for some countries from your region an endgame strategy. Today, we have the privilege of having three great speakers. First one, Dr. Ulysses Doroteo from Philippines. Yul, a friend, is a doctor in medicine, has a diploma in international health and ophthalmology residency and a neuro-ophthalmology fellowship. He is currently the executive director of SIATCA, the Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance. Secondly, we will have Ian Yuan. He is from China and is the deputy director of the think tank Research for Health Development, a member of the Chinese Tobacco Control Association. Ian holds a master in public health and a master in science. Finally, we have one of our hosts in that way, our friend also Koji Hassawa from Japan. Koji is a medical doctor working on smoking cessation, cardiovascular disease, and pharmacotherapy, and he's the director of the Division of Transnational Research at the National Hospital Organization Kyoto Medical Center. Koji, thank you for inviting me. So let's go to the point. Let's begin with Yul, that will be presenting the theme tobacco endgame in Southeast Asia. Yul, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Eduardo and Esti, and thank you, Koji, also for inviting me to make this presentation. While we talk about smoke-free environments, I think we need to be looking at a very larger picture, a much larger picture, and that is a more forward-looking picture as well, and what we often refer to as the tobacco endgame. In our region in Southeast Asia, it's quite an urgent issue, especially when we're thinking about our current situation with COVID. COVID currently has claimed about 4.3 million lives worldwide in the past 20 months. But tobacco actually kills 8 million people every year. That's double the number of COVID deaths so far. And so just looking at that tells us that we actually need to apply a greater urgency with regard to the tobacco pandemic. And we already know what needs to be done. We have a range of measures which are contained in the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, the FCTC. And this is the established floor or minimum that countries need to be implementing in order to achieve the tobacco endgame, to reduce tobacco use and the harms that it causes. If we look at the Southeast Asia region, the ASEAN region, the 10 countries have about 122 million adult smokers. And the numbers that you see in red are percentages. These are the prevalence rates for adult smoking. And they're actually quite high. The highest is in Indonesia, 36.3%, and much higher among men, which I think is about 60%. And we have, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Singapore in 2018 was 12%, but just last year, 2020, their prevalence dropped even further to 10.1%. So it's a very large number of people smoking, but there are different prevalence rates in every country. It's also quite alarming that we have young people who are both smoking and using e-cigarettes. The cigarette prevalence rate among teens aged 13 to 15 is as high as around 14% in Malaysia, followed closely by the Philippines, 12%, my country. And e-cigarette use, the Philippines tops at around 12% as well. So there are new challenges. It's not just the usual traditional tobacco products, but new products such as electronic cigarettes and heated tobacco products that are challenging tobacco control regulators and enforcers and policymakers. So where are we in terms of addressing this tobacco pandemic? If we look at the WHO's most recent report on the global tobacco epidemic, just looking at this graph shows you that many countries are far, very far from achieving the highest level of implementation for just these 6 tobacco control measures. The middle one, which is the highest, is health warnings, and that has had the most improvement since 2007 up to today. But if we look at what is the most effective, which is taxation, only about 13% of countries, and that used to be half, but now we have had 6% more. So should we be happy? No. Many countries are falling behind in terms of taxation, and this is the most important thing that we should be implementing. So let's look at where progress is in the ASEAN region. So globally, we're lagging, but are we also lagging in terms of the ASEAN region? So in terms of taxation, over the past 20 years, we've also seen that cigarettes are becoming cheaper over time for all countries. On the graph, you see that there are certain periods where cigarettes became more expensive. So for Indonesia, that was around 2010 to 2012, when the number of taxed years collapsed a little bit. And then in 2012 to 2016 for the Philippines, when sin tax reform was also implemented and tax rates went up significantly. So we can see that as cigarettes become more expensive, we see there are declines in smoking. So there is more room for improvement, at least on taxation. Much more room for improvement, because if we look to the left side of this graph, that's how much more expensive cigarettes were 20 years ago. But now they're much cheaper, much more affordable. In terms of smoke-free environments, we're having some progress. There are local officials that are implementing smoke-free cities, smoke-free heritage sites. This is a project of SIATCA. There are countries that are doing quite well as well. So in this chart, you see Thailand, Brunei, and Laos, and even Singapore doing quite well. But there are countries that are lagging, like Indonesia and my own country, the Philippines, where many public places are still allowing smoking rooms indoors, when we know that that is really not effective. And if we move on to the next measure, which is packaging and health warnings, the gold standard, of course, now is to apply standardized packaging. And we're quite fortunate that in Southeast Asia and even in Asia, Thailand and Singapore are among the first countries to implement standardized or plain packaging of tobacco products. And this is what they look like in those countries. We know, of course, that Australia was the first in 2012, and many others have followed, but these two countries are leading the way in Asia. And other countries need to catch up. So if we look at pack warnings in the ASEAN region, Thailand and Singapore stand out because there's no color, right? There are no brands in terms of red of Marlboro or other brands. The brand names are there, but what stands out is the large health warning. And unfortunately, the Philippines is one of the ones that has the smallest, which is 50%, and is even beaten by countries like Laos and Myanmar that are at 80%. So I think this is one area that we can also all improve on, to denormalize tobacco use and discourage tobacco use. Because if we look at the largest health warnings in the world, they belong to a really tiny country, really tiny and poor country, Timor-Leste, which has 85% front and 100% back. So we have to learn from them as well. And with regard to advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, this is a really good way of discouraging tobacco use because it denormalizes tobacco and keeps people not thinking about tobacco because it's no longer in sight, so it's out of their mind as well. But if we look at the region, countries that are doing well are really just Thailand, which includes banning of cross-border advertising. Laos still has a problem with pack display. Singapore still allows some forms of CSR, although they don't allow publicity of it. But generally, we are falling behind with regard to advertising at the point of sale, including display of retail products, and also with regard to CSR. And this is a growing problem. So you see, for example, here, examples from Indonesia and the Philippines, where advertising is still quite allowed and promotions are rampant by the tobacco industry, as opposed to what you see in the upper right corner, which is a shelf in Thailand where tobacco products are no longer visible because they're hidden behind a display cabinet. And what's worrying, of course, is CSR, corporate social responsibility by the tobacco companies, especially during this time of the COVID pandemic. We're seeing tobacco companies donate PPE, ambulances, respirators, food, and the like. And it's very difficult to say no to these initiatives because people are in need, not realizing, of course, that this is a way to influence policymakers when it comes to tobacco regulation. And we all know that COVID-19 is much worse when people are smoking. So if we go back to the original question, are we closer to the end game? Yes, we're making progress. But the gaps exist, and we're not there yet. We're actually far behind, and we need to accelerate the rate of implementation of the FCTC. What do I recommend? Well, we actually need to be focusing more on young people. Banning sales to and by minors is Article 16 of the treaty, but we need to be thinking about how to prevent people from starting to smoke, because if we can prevent them when they're young, they're very unlikely to start and become addicted. So prevention is key. And I mentioned age 25 because we all know now that the adolescent brain continues to mature and can become addicted until age 25. And so the concept of raising the minimum age from 18 to 21 makes sense, and if we can do it to 25, all the better. We should promote a tobacco-free generation, which means young people are committed to never start smoking. We should require licenses for tobacco retail so that people can't just sell tobacco any place that they want. They need to be licensed. And this is a way to control illicit trade as well, so to protect our tax measures. We need to reduce actually the number of places where cigarettes and tobacco products can be sold so that they're not available at every single corner store. We need to ban single stick sales and also ban kiddie packs, because these are ways to make tobacco products easily affordable to young people. And of course, we want to discourage tobacco use by reducing attractiveness of these products by banning flavors, which will then affect the way packaging is done and also not be able to be used for advertising. And also to ban tobacco scenes in entertainment media, because this is how tobacco companies reach out to young people, especially now when everybody's on the internet and in social media. And in addition, I would actually recommend that we unleash the full power of the FCTC, which means regulating the products themselves. And we've started to do that with tobacco packaging, with plain packaging, and banning flavors, but we haven't regulated the level of nicotine. We also are very poor at providing alternative livelihoods to our farmers. And we have not even thought about phasing out tobacco products, which we really should have done many years ago. I mean, all consumer products are recalled if they're defective. And what kind of a product is tobacco? It is the most defective commercial product in existence. And of course, we should litigate the industry so that it pays for the damages that it has caused. Okay? So if we look at the obstacles, they're not that insurmountable in terms of human and financial resources. They're difficult, but we can overcome them. But the most important barrier really is the tobacco industry. And I think more effort needs to be allocated to trying to end the tobacco pandemic by ending the tobacco industry. I can't say this enough, because now the tobacco industry is claiming that they also want a smoke-free future, that they're part of the solution. Well, they're not. They're really the cause of the problem. So how can we trust that they will be part of the solution when they are driving the tobacco pandemic? Let's not be fooled by what the tobacco companies are saying. So again, I will emphasize, to end the tobacco pandemic, we need to end the disease vector, which is the tobacco industry, and not just treat the disease, for the sake of our children and the future of the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yu. Excellent presentation, very comprehensive. I pass the floor to Esti to continue with our next speaker.
Moving on to the next presentation, let's welcome our next speaker, Dr. Jiang Yuan. The title of her presentation is Tobacco Control in China, Local City Tobacco Control Legislation Can Change Social Norms. Dr. Jiang, you may go ahead and share your presentation.
Okay, thank you for the host. So good morning or good afternoon. So thank you for the organizer to organize this symposium in this special time period. We hope next APACT we can meet each other together. So I want to introduce some progress in China for tobacco control. The first is smoking prevalence, and we have a new FCTC coordinator mechanism, and also from the Empower view, introduce the tobacco control policy in China. We also have some opportunity and a new challenge. So here, this figure you can see, this is from WHO. Whatever the high-income country and the low-income country, generally the smoking rate decreased. But in China, we have almost the same time period. The smoking rate almost no change. Currently, we have about 300 million current smoker, and each year about 2 million, 2.6 million people die due to the smoking, due to the tobacco use. So the China people is 85 of the global people, 80.5 of the global people is Chinese, but about 1/3 of the people die due to the tobacco use is China. So it's 1/5 and it's 1/3. So this is mean the tobacco is more harmful to the Chinese people. So here, this is before 2008, we have the old coordinator mechanism for FCTC. So the leader is the MIIT, it's the Minister of the Industry and Information Technology. And also the Deputy Director is the Minister of Health and the Minister for Foreign Affairs. So the STMA is a tobacco normal play. STMA is the one part of MIT. So we think just like the previous one said, that the tobacco interference is very so because the MIT is just the director under the leadership of the MIT STMA. The new structure here is the FCTC new mechanism. The first good news is the Minister of Health become the leader of this new coordinator mechanism, and the first line is the old one. They combine some agency, and the second line, the yellow one, is some new agency like some NGO, like the Women Federation, All Chinese Women Federation, and Ministry of Education, and the General Administration of the Support, something like that. So more government and non-government agency involved in FCTC, and the MOH become the leader. We think this should be a very good. Oh, why? Oh, yeah. So I mean, we also have another opportunity that is the Chinese national policy. We call this Health China 2030. The target is life expectancy. Currently, it's 76. The target is 79. So, and also for the smoking, we have some special indicator like the smoke-free low will cover about 30% population next year, 2022, and 2030 should be cover 80% population. I even asked then why not the 100%? I hope it's a 100%. Who will be the 20% cannot cover, cannot protect by this smoke-free law? And also the smoking rate for adults should be less than 20. Currently it's 26.6. And this is the current situation. In China, we have about 20 cities. They have smoke-free law. So currently, it's a cover about 13.8 population. Next year should be 30%. So we have a huge gap. And most people do not cover by this law. And another bad thing is Chongqing. Chongqing is a municipal, it's a big city of China, very, very big. It's have the 30 million people in Chongqing, and Chongqing just passed their law last September, and its act in the 4th January of this year. But Chongqing's law is not include something like hotel, like the restaurant. So in the restaurant, you can have the smoking room or smoking area. So it's not smoke-free. So Chongqing, because Chongqing is a big city, so Chongqing is a very bad example for us. After Chongqing, it's Dalian, Shenyang. It's very quickly passed their local law. It's very similar with Chongqing, not 100% smoke-free. And also, even these 20 cities, they have 100% smoke law. They cannot work very well. And for some industry, like the hospital, we have the national law for hospital, for school, for government building. So for that, you can say they have some decrease. I think this is very good news. And also for Shanghai, Beijing, they have local law, and compared with other cities, the Shanghai and Beijing work very well. But compared with the international, with like the Canada city, with the European city, with the American city, it's also very not very good. For example, for the restaurant in the whole country, the second-hand smoke exposure rate is about 17.3. In Beijing, it's about 40%. In Shanghai, it's about 20%. So compared with other cities, it's very good. But compared with even, so I make sorry, this is in Chinese. So I compare the restaurant is a national level, Beijing level, and the Shanghai level. You can say the Beijing, Shanghai is better than the national level. And this is an article just published last year. In the Beijing, we use the medical insurance record that you can say for the stroke, for the inpatient survey, the stroke is decreased. The red line is not real line. If we do not have the policy, the line should be the right. But the acute, the real case is so it's a decrease. For the 25 months, it's a decrease about 18,000. So near 1 year is 10,000. It's a huge public health effect result. And also for the sensation and power, the third policy is offer sensation service. So in China, the adult sensation rate is 18.7, and the smoker, if they go to see a doctor, about half doctor ask their smoking situation, and among them, near half they get the advice from doctor they should quit. And also, Koji. So this is we use the ITC data. Jeffrey Fang, Professor Jeffrey Fang, work with Japan, Korea, and China. So you can say that the compare with Japan and Korea, the people want to quit. The right one is the people want to quit. In China, 28. Smokers said they want to quit. In Japan, it's 11, and in Korea, it's 31. But in Japan, in the last year, more than half people, 54 people, they try to quit, and also Korea is similar. So so this is mean that the people they want to quit. They know they should quit, but they do not quit, do not action. So for the warning label is the purpose of a warning should increase the knowledge of the harmful of tobacco use. So I select indicator for the secondhand smoking. From the result, you can say this is a 2 year, 2015 and 2018. So the less than 15% people know that secondhand smoking can cause cardiovascular disease. So the knowledge is very poor. In China, the warning label, we do not have the pictorial warning label. We even do not like the Japan. Japan, they use the word, but they say the smoking can cause the heart disease, smoking can cause lung cancer. The first one is before the 2008, the warning label is the smoking is harmful. It's in the side, and the first version they changed to the front. It's both in Chinese and back is in English. And after 4 years, they make the word some bigger than the first one. And later, they just put the ban smoking sign. And the last one, they just put a sentence, do not smoking in the smoke-free place, and discourage use people from smoking. This is no use. This is no use. Even they do not say the smoking can cause lung cancer, smoking can cause the heart disease. And also, they put the figure, the number in the packaging. This is mean the low tar, harmless tobacco. And I think the Chinese cigarette package is the most beautiful. Some traditional Chinese culture, very beautiful. No, cannot make the people think the harmful. And also we do some PSA. This is only one, but it's a real story. The people suffer from the cardiovascular disease in the train, and he met a doctor, and later he become the do a PSA for us. And also for the tips. In China, we have, in 2015, we have a new advertisement law. In last law that we should ban, the total ban the tobacco advertisement in the news media, in the old channel media, and in the public place. But the tobacco monopoly said the tobacco shop or the sale point is not belong to the public place. So a lot of tobacco advertisements there, and we also have some good news. So in China we have some social media. The first they have some emoji like that. So the first in 2007, the very famous Xinjiang Vlog, the first remove the smoking emoji, and the same year. The Tencent, they remove that, and this year the World Not Tobacco Day is commit to quit. So the most popular social media we saw WeChat, in the domestic they call TikTok. They remove the big soldier remove the cigarette. So I think this is a social normal. The social normal is changed, and also for the tax, this is a figure from the WHO. The China, Indonesia, India become more and more affordability. And in China, yes, for if you are rich, you can buy very expensive tobacco. If you're very poor, you can buy very cheap. Even the same brand, they have the different variety, so you can choose. So that we have a new challenge. I think we should talk. So first one is the e-cigarette. It's a lot of confuse, but it's become more and more popular. We do the surveillance in the China for the adults. The use e-cigarette rate is from 1 to 2%. And for the teenager, the increase very fast. And also COVID-19 pandemic, I think the people become more stressed. So stress may be we can discuss this later. And also for the COVID-19 and the economic situation not good. So maybe the government more depend on the tobacco tax. But anyway, I think we have the target. The target is a healthy China. The healthy China, the smoke-free China should be the foundation of the healthy China. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jiang, for the presentation, for sharing it with us. I give the floor to Eduardo.
Thank you. Well, we now move to our final speaker, Dr. Koji Hassawa, with the presentation Psychological Stress and Tobacco Control. Koji, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eduardo Bianco, for your kind introduction, and also Ms. St. Nurjandi for chairing this session. Today's my topic is psychological stress and tobacco control, especially focusing on COVID-19 pandemic. So that first topic is smoking as a risk factor of disease progression in COVID-19. So COVID-19 initially outbroke in December 2019, and on March 12, WHO declares a pandemic. As of August 19, 2021, according to the WHO data, cumulative number of patients worldwide exceeds 200 million. This is nearly twofold compared with 2021 February, just half a year ago. And number of deaths exceeds 4 million. This is again nearly twofold compared with half a year ago. So the pandemic is ongoing. This is the original data come from China, and most cases are mild, but some of the cases progress to severe state. Around 40% of cases, they exhibit a moderate level of symptoms, and 5% of patients result in severe states such as ICU admission or mechanical ventilation. And overall mortality is around 2.3%. And this mortality rate is quite different from country to country and region to region, and also dependent on the situation of the vaccination. So this is a comparison, just a simple comparison on the rate of disease progression in COVID-19 among current smokers, past smokers, and non-smokers. And you can see that the rate of disease progression was the highest among past smokers, followed by current smokers. And the rate of disease progression was the lowest among non-smokers. And these data do not mean that smoking cessation increased the risk, because many of past smokers are elderly and associated with long smoking history and cardiac and pulmonary comorbidities. This is the odds ratio for the presence of smoking history, including current and past smoking. And the presence of smoking history will be the largest contributor to disease progression. The odds ratio of the disease progression was 14. This is a very big number. Even though this data come from small sample size and exhibit a large confidence interval, the result may be useful as an estimate for the impact of smoking history. And this is the odds ratio of current smoking for disease progression in COVID-19. The current smoking versus past smoking and not smoking is also a significant risk factor of disease progression. And odds ratio is 2.04. Again, this is significant. So apparently, smoking is a risk factor of disease progression in COVID-19. And this is right side is a mortality and left side is a infection. And the mortality is higher among older generation, right side. And the left side in the infection. Infection is more common among younger generation. So the infection and mortality are quite different. And some of the data show that the SARS coronavirus to PCR positive ratio is lower in current smokers compared with non-smokers. However, this is far away to conclude that smoking inhibits infection because smokers receive more PCR examinations because they often exhibit symptoms such as cough. And also, tobacco smoke contains a number of chemicals attached to the respiratory tract, which inhibit the PCR reaction, so the false negative result will increase. For all of these reasons, we cannot conclude that smoking inhibits infection. And this is a scientific belief by World Health Organization. They say that smoking is associated with increased severity of disease and death in hospitalized COVID-19 patients. No evidence to quantify the risk on smokers on infection by SARS coronavirus 2. So the tobacco smoke contains a number of chemicals which cause severe damage to the vessel walls, inflammation and thrombosis. These will lead to the development of myocardial and cerebral infarction. And the advanced age is certainly the most important risk factor of COVID-19 disease progression. And smoking is also a significant important risk factor. Based on these background risk factors, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and COPD, these are the comorbidity risk factors. These will result in the reduced cardiac and pulmonary function, and finally result in severe states and death in COVID-19. So this is a data of antibody titer after vaccination. And you can see the antibody generated after the COVID-19 messenger RNA vaccination. The present smokers were much less in antibody titer compared with never smoker. In past smokers, also the antibody titer is less compared with never smoker. So central obesity, smoking habit, and hypertension were associated with lower antibody titers in response to COVID-19 messenger RNA vaccine. So this is also important data to show that smokers need to stop smoking during the COVID-19 pandemic. The next topic is a psychological stress, so-called COVID-19 related depression and smoking. And in Japan, the suicide continued to increase after July 2020. 40% increase in October 2020 compared to October 2019. The increase predominant among women compared with men. This is the COVID-19 related depression around the world. Proportion of people in distress is reported to be 35% in China, 45% in the United States, and 6% in Iran. Warning from the United Nations say that protect people from mental health crisis during COVID-19 pandemic. So the WHO also made a statement on psychological stress, COVID-19, and the need for action on mental health. To cope with stress, people are turning to alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, and online games. And this is the data of the current smokers. double-edged relationship between COVID-19 threat and smoking. That 25% of current smokers increase their pieces of number per day. This increase may be due to the anxiety, psychological and stress and depressive mood. Mostly they smoke at home. On the other hand, 20% of current smokers decrease their pieces, number of pieces per day. This is good, and this may be due to the threat by COVID-19 to develop severe symptoms. If we could more stress that smoking as a risk factor of disease progression in COVID-19, we may be able to increase the motivation of current smokers to stop smoking. On the other hand, if we could manage mental health, we may be able to decrease the smoking. So the nicotine is the main contain the tobacco smoke and get into the bloodstream and bind to the receptor in the brain, and nicotine will release noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin in the brain. And the serotonin possesses antidepressive and anti-anxietic actions. So the smokers temporarily feel pleasant feeling and also will be able to get out of depression and anxiety temporarily. If smokers continue smoking, depression and anxiety will be worsened. This is a nicotine dependent. And there are many factors associated with psychological stress and depressive state during COVID-19 pandemic. These factors include fear of infection and anxiety, staying home, lack of exercise, decreased opportunities of meeting and communication, economic collapse. These are associated with psychological stress, and psychological stress are closely associated with smoking. These will synergistically increase cardiovascular diseases such as stroke and myocardial infarction. So the impact of COVID-19 related depression is great. First, we need to stress more that smoking is an important risk factor of COVID-19 disease progression. And also, maximal efforts are needed to prevent the cardiovascular diseases by care of mental health and improvement of lifestyle during COVID-19 pandemic. And thank you very much for your attention.
Great presentation, Dr. Koji Hassawa. You had very important topics. So now let's move to our segment of question and answers. Please, Esti.
Thank you to all the speakers for sharing the presentation with us. Next session is the Q&A sessions. If I may, I would like to ask the first question to Ulysses. My question is, are e-cigarettes part of the solution to end the tobacco epidemic?
Thank you for that question. We hear a lot about e-cigarettes being proposed as less harmful alternatives to tobacco products like cigarettes. And there is a growing concern that they are causing more addiction, that they are actually dampening cessation efforts. So people, instead of switching to these products completely, end up as dual users. It means sometimes they smoke regular tobacco products, then other times they use their e-cigarettes. So from that perspective, there is really a problem of actually prolonging the tobacco epidemic rather than shortening it. There are, of course, anecdotes that some smokers quit through the use of e-cigarettes, but we haven't seen that evidence in terms of a population level surveillance. So at the moment, it's very hard to say that they are part of the solution to the problem. And from what I've discussed earlier, we're seeing many young people starting to use these e-cigarettes. Like in the Philippines, 20% of all e-cigarette users are teenagers. So we're seeing this not as a part of the solution, but actually compounding the problem. Of course, research still needs to continue so that we can see exactly what we're dealing with, and I hope in the near future we will have more information.
Dr. Yang, you share with us the improvement, the advances that you have made in China in tobacco control. What could be the next step for you?
So here, yeah, the smoking is a big challenge. It's very harmful for the Chinese people. So I think they should follow the FCTC comprehensive tobacco control. So I think the first step is we change the FCTC coordinate mechanism. So currently, the Ministry of Health is the leader of this mechanism, and also we have our Healthy China 2030 target. We have 15 activity. One activity is the tobacco control. They have special program. So in China, I think maybe among all the measurement, I think that how to the tobacco interference is I think it's the most important. So how to because for example, like the Chongqing, the smoke-free law is not 100%. We know this is the tobacco. They work a lot. So I think how to fight with the tobacco industry is the priority. And also in China, I think another good opportunity for us is maybe due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic situation is not good. So the government need money. So I think maybe we have chance to increase the tax and the retail price. And also the knowledgement is very poor. We do not have the warning label. We do not have too much the effective media activity. So, but new media is very new for us, and it's become very popular. So maybe new media for propaganda for education is a new channel. So the tobacco interference, tobacco tax, and the new media.
Thank you.
Yeah, my next question is to Koji. Can you explain briefly how smoking associated with the disease severity of COVID-19?
Thank you very much, SD. First of all, tobacco smoking is closely related with cardiovascular disease and COPD. So tobacco users are associated with reduced function of the heart and the lung. That is the first reason why smokers result in the severe states in COVID-19. And also, as described, smokers have reduced immunity. For example, after the COVID-19 vaccination, antibody generated are much less in present smokers and also past smokers compared with never smokers. So the smokers have less immunity and will be able to generate less antibody after infection of the coronaviruses. So that is the reason why the smokers develop more severe symptoms. If smokers stop smoking, the immune system will recover 2 or 3 weeks after the cessation. So people should stop smoking during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
So now is the best time to quit, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Let's ask to Dr. Doroteo. You addressed the concept of the tobacco-free generation. Could you provide further information about that?
Yep. So the tobacco-free generation is an idea that was proposed some years ago, where either voluntarily or even by law, commercial sales to anyone born after a certain date would be prohibited. So for example, anybody who was born after January 1st of the year 2000, if we never sell, if sales is prohibited to anyone born after that date, that means at this time they would be 21 years old already, which means that no one younger than 21 years old will ever be sold a tobacco product. And therefore we cut the cycle. So only older people will continue to smoke, and as older people die, then we will have less and less people smoking. And this has actually been implemented. For example, in Balanga City in the Philippines, this was the subject of an ordinance, and we did see some progress, but the tobacco company sued the city, and it's now in the courts. Even though tobacco companies say they don't want young people to be smoking, they don't like the concept of a tobacco-free generation, because they claim that anybody who becomes an adult should be able to choose if they want to smoke or not. But we all know that, if you're 17 years old and then you turn 18 tomorrow, why is it yesterday you're not allowed and then today you're allowed? It doesn't make sense. So the tobacco-free generation really tells us that we want to save our young people from smoking and all the harms that come with it. And so when they become adults, they are safe, they continue to be safe, and they then become more productive and lead healthy and longer lives. So this is just one of the concepts for promoting the tobacco endgame. And I think this ties in nicely with the suggestion also of others to start phasing out commercial sales of tobacco products, because we really should not be selling these products. They're bad for everybody. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now I want to hear from Jiang.
Okay.
In your opinion, how can we increase the knowledge about the danger of smoking when there are no warning labels on the packaging and there's no PSA campaign on mainstream media such as TVs and radios, or another platform such as YouTube or TikTok, like that?
Yes, so because I work in this field more than 20 years, so the big challenge for us is acknowledgement. The people do not know the harmful of the smoking or the harmful of the secondhand smoking. So the people say, why you do not allow us smoking in the restaurant, in the hotel? We are have a lot of fun there. So I think we also work with a lot of key people, like the people delegated for the People Congress, and we propose more than 10 years we should change the Chinese. We should have the pictorial warning label like Hong Kong, like Macau, like Taiwan. So, but it's few. So we have no pictorial warning label, and also for the we learn from the American, like the tips. American cities say the tip, they use the real story. We do some, like I just show one PSA. Is a real patient suffer from the heart disease in the train, on the train, and met Dr. Hu, and only one. And the problem is that we do not have the financial support. It's very expensive if you broadcast in the TV. So I think in China, the new media maybe is a opportunity for us, like just you mentioned the TikTok, and so maybe. But this, I think we are very old. We're not very familiar with the new media, how to use them, how to. I know a person. He has some like the blog, and then he even earned some money from that. So I think maybe this is an opportunity for us. And another channel is this year, because we have the Healthy China 2030. So each province, they have the in the school, in the primary school and the middle school and high school, each class should have some class focus on the health education. So you can focus on the birth, and focus on the stress, mental health, focus on the air, use the air health. And in some province, we convince them, one class focus on the tobacco. Maybe for the teenager, it's secondhand smoke, and homework is a smoke-free family. So I think this is very slow, but we can do that in the we develop the curriculum for some province. And different some province they use the cartoon, some province they use the regular class. So I think we can use every channel we can. But anyway, I think the most useful is the pictorial warning label and the PSA. We hope we can use that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiang. So maybe the PSA is expensive. We have to utilize the new media platform that we can connect with the youth easily. Yeah. Maybe they are more into this TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube rather than watching TV.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go now to Koji. Koji, you mentioned it, that the current COVID-19 pandemic increased the level of stress of the population, and that could be a driving force for increasing tobacco consumption and challenging tobacco control policy, mainly the smoking ban. How we could manage the psychological stress related to this pandemic in a healthy way?
Thank you very much, Dr. Eduardo Bianco. This is a very important question, but I think there's no definitive answer, but I can describe my opinion. I believe that exercise and communication are two important ways to relieve psychological stress. And the government say we should not go out from home. If people stay at home, do not exercise at home, and no communication with others, people are so much stressed. So we need to exercise every day, even though we stay at home. That is the first point we should do. And also communication is also important. It's very difficult. The meeting, face-to-face meeting is very difficult. However, we can communicate through the internet. The communication with the family and lovers and intimate friends are very important. And they should speak with intimate people, then they will be able to relieve stress. I would like to stress these 2 points. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I say one sentence? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the psychological, for the depression, because I'm not a doctor, but my husband is a doctor. He is a psychological doctor, and it's during the pandemic, for this almost 1.5 years. I think the first one is the government subsidy. The people lost their job. They do not have enough money, so I think subsidy is very important. The second one is in China, we have a lot of hotline So everyone knows the hotline number. So you have problem, you can it's a free. So it's a support by some foundation, by university, or by some NGO.
Yeah. So as a point of discussions, I want to ask these questions to all the three speakers. The notion of switching to e-cigarettes with the low temperature and high levels of nicotine as an effective way to help the adult smokers to quit, kind of worrying because then the very high level of nicotine can be an addiction to the new generation, to the teenagers and the youth, which is a very good business model for the tobacco industry. So what do you think is a good policy to have the cigarettes or vape as available for the adult smoker who are trying to quit smoking, and then at the same time protect the youth? Way to help the adult smokers to quit, kind of worrying because then the very high level of nicotine can be an addiction to the new generation, to the teenagers and the youth, which is a very good business model for the tobacco industry. So what do you think is a good policy to have the cigarettes or vape as available for the adult smoker who are trying to quit smoking, and then at the same time protect the youth, the teenagers, from becoming a new generations of consumers, especially during the COVID-19, where the stress level is at high, both for adults and teenagers as well. Maybe Ulysses can answer this first, and after that maybe Koji and Jiang can comment also on this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Esti. So as we mentioned earlier, really these products, e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products, are being marketed as alternatives to cigarettes. And one thing tobacco companies have been saying about their products is that these are not for young people, and they're not even for non-smokers. So they are their target audience is supposedly only smokers. So if we want to actually follow through with that, we should have a policy where it is prohibited to sell to non-smokers and to sell to young people. So that's the first step. And I think the new thing there is prohibiting sales to non-smokers. That will cut the cycle. Of course, how to do that is another question. It might be a bit challenging. But overall, I would say that we should be very strict with our usual tobacco control, because this will denormalize tobacco use and therefore make even e-cigarette use unattractive to young people. And one very concrete way of blocking access to young people is what they have started to implement in Australia, is to require a prescription from a physician. So if the industry and those promoting e-cigarettes are saying this is a way for people to quit smoking, then it should be part of tobacco cessation, which will then require that these products are sold under prescription, particularly in countries where nicotine is considered a drug that needs to be very tightly regulated. So in Malaysia, for example, it's actually classified as a poison, and therefore it can only be dispensed the way that other drugs, regulated drugs, are dispensed, with a special prescription.
Thank you. May I have a question for maybe for you and for Koji, because I think Ian had already answered that question, but if you want, you can add further. What could be the next tobacco control policy step that could have a strong impact and be feasible for your country or for your region? Could you elaborate on that? I don't know, Koji, and then you.
Could I start? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for your excellent question, Eduardo. Well, actually, the continuation of the e-cigarettes or vape, in Japan, the HTP, heated tobacco product, is prevailing so much, and e-cigarettes are prevailing in Europe so much. And this is due to the over-exaggerated advertisement by industry. The industry claims that HTP is safe, so that people misunderstood that tobacco product, new tobacco products are safe. So we need to claim that heated tobacco product, in case of Japan, or e-cigarette in Europe, they are not safe. We should make a conclusion. We do not know exactly how much they are dangerous, how much they are safe compared with usual cigarettes. But definitely we can say that e-cigarette or HTP are not safe. So we should make more clear statement. In case of HTP, in 2019, in July, the WHO declared that HTP should be treated as a tobacco product and should be regulated in similar way with usual cigarettes. And now, last year, the Japanese government approved the smoking cessation program for all HTP users. So we can treat HTP users in a similar way with usual cigarette users. So I think we need to more conclusively state that new tobacco products are not safe, even though we do not know exactly how much dangerous or how much safe. Thank you very much. So that is the way forward to stop the new tobacco product. Thank you.
Yeah, we do need.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so in China, you know the most e-cigarette, not HDP, most e-cigarette is produced in China. So I think for China, e-cigarette is something like a trade-off. So because I work in this field 20 years, the smoking rate is almost no change. So anyway, the e-cigarette is reduced, it's harmless. But I agree that because we have no any regulation for e-tobacco, e-cigarette till so far. So we should manage it, we should supervise. And the second one is in the smoke-free place, you cannot use the e-cigarette, because it's very difficult to identify it's a regular tobacco or e-cigarette. And the third, I think in China we should do some research. How it's harmful. Can you help people to quit? And the last one, I think for the teenager is a teenager. So currently in China, the e-cigarette have a lot of flavor. So the apple, the orange, the ice cream, the chocolate, so many tests. So I think if you for quit, for the smoker they use only one test, only maybe the tobacco test, it's okay. So I think for the flavor it's just for the teenager. So maybe we should ban the teenager. We should ban the flavor. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jules, your comments?
Well, I think I did hint about this in my presentation. I think what is key is that we need to denormalize tobacco use and the tobacco industry. So in relation to comments by Koji and Yang, you know, the tobacco industry is finding ways to normalize their products. So they're saying that their new products are safer or even safe, and therefore they should be part of normal life. Flavors is one way to normalize tobacco use because it's attractive, right? So all of the measures that are in the FCTC to denormalize tobacco use, that includes standardized packaging, you know, raising taxes so that they're very expensive, and you know, people will wonder, you know, it should be abnormal to be smoking. If there are no flavors, you know, it's not attractive to be smoking because they taste bad. And even applying measures to implement Article 5.3 so that the tobacco industry is not part of policy making. All of that will denormalize tobacco use. So I don't think there's any single policy that we need to be doing more than others, but do what is effective. For most countries, I would say raising taxes being the most effective is also one thing that we should concentrate on. For the ASEAN region, I would say plain packaging, because that's how the product is perceived by consumers. And then everything else that everybody said, some countries in ASEAN have banned e-cigarettes, like Singapore, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Brunei have all banned e-cigarettes. That's one way to even denormalize e-cigarette use. So the key really is making it abnormal to use these products. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for these comments. Well, we have reached to the end of our session. We have heard 3 excellent presentations. Our speakers showed that the region, Asia and Asia Pacific, have experienced significant progresses in tobacco control policy development, but smoking remains as the main single totally preventable cause of death and disease in the region, but also in the world. So a lot of work for us as a tobacco control community ahead. Not just in passing new and implementing new tobacco control policies, but also improving our the tobacco control governance. In relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is clear that tobacco smoking is associated to an increasing of severe cases of COVID-19. And COVID-19 continues to be a threat to the world, but it's also an opportunity for changing, improving the health of our population and setting this level of health in a better situation in the face of a possible new pandemic. So it is time to accelerate the implementation of SCDC and to even consider going beyond that with endgame strategies. Finally, it's clear that the main obstacle for advancing in tobacco control continues to be the tobacco industry, and that tobacco countries and the countries should apply Article 5.3 and his guideline if they really want to advance in tobacco control policy. But also, countries need to provide further financing for tobacco control policy measures. Esti, you have the floor.
So finally, we have reached the end of our panel discussions. On behalf of the APACT Organizing Committee, I would like to warmly thank our speakers, Dr. Ulysses Doroteo, Dr. Jiang Yuan, Dr. Koji Hassawa, for the compelling presentation. Lastly, a big thank you to Dr. Eduardo Bianco for co-chairing with me today's panel discussion. To all the participants, thank you for joining this session. We look forward to see you in person, hopefully in the next APACT conference. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This section is the end already, but we have special event and special session on that time. This time until 1 p.m. we have review and wrap up of APACT. And please enjoy with this section. And if finished on wrap up, we have the closing ceremony session on 1:45 p.m. 1:45 p.m. สำหรับคนไทยนะครับจบแล้วเซสชันนี้นะครับถ้าเกิดว่าใครยังสนใจอยู่เรามีเซสชัน wrap up กับรีวิวนะครับตอนนี้เลยนะครับแล้วก็ร่วมกันอยู่ในพิธีปิดด้วยนะครับในช่วงบ่ายโมง 45 นะครับก็จะมีพิธีปิดอย่างเป็นทางการนะครับขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านนะครับก็ขอให้ทุกท่านโชคดีแล้วก็มีความสุขในการประชุมAPACTครั้งนี้นะครับขอบคุณครับ